President Trump makes another threat to close the southern border, the latest move in the standoff over his proposed wall. A dream turns into a nightmare. Owners of a Valley Center ranch picking up the pieces after evicting a controversial horse rescue operation.
Oh, it's sandy, man.
In a lot of ways, it's like regular golf, but res golf is a game that with some hazards that can be, well, hazardous. KPBS Evening Edition starts right now. Good evening and thanks for joining us. I'm Maya Trabulsi. President Trump now says he is willing to shut down the southern border to get funding for his wall. He said it in a series of tweets this morning, once again putting the blame on congressional Democrats. That line was echoed by his incoming chief of staff, who says the Democrats walked away from a deal.
We made an offer last Saturday night. They told us that they'd get back to us by the end of the week. They got back to us last night and said, we're leaving. That's it, no more discussions. So the discussions have broken down. We do expect this to go on for a while. We do expect to manage it.
And Trump also criticized NAFTA, saying that closing the border would be a money-making operation in comparison, and called for a return to pre-NAFTA. Just last month, Trump signed a new trade deal with Mexico and Canada. The NAFTA replacement still has to be ratified. San Diego County supervisors will likely chart the county's course soon in the battle over a state-mandated climate action plan. KPBS reporter Eric Anderson has details.
A Superior Court's decision to reject a key portion of the county's climate action plan means county supervisors have a decision to make in January. Judge Timothy Taylor said the county's plan to offset greenhouse gas emissions with out-of-region or out-of-country carbon credits is wrong. Josh Chatton-Brown is the attorney who argued the case for the Sierra Club in San Diego.
The county has to make a decision as to whether it's going to continue business as usual, which has been fighting at every stage of the process in court. The county has been losing at each and every step of the way, or if the county is going to take a new position, a new approach, and decide that instead of continuing through the courts to spend its effort and resources in preparing a climate action plan that will help protect the future of our children.
Several already approved housing projects use the carbon offsets to mitigate the traffic the projects would create. Those developments are being challenged. The Sierra Club's Peter Anderson says county lawmakers should use common sense and do the right thing.
They're repeatedly violating their own general plan by approving projects that are out of line with the general plan that they laid down some years ago for development in San Diego.
This is the third time the county's climate action plan has been challenged in court. If this ruling is challenged and upheld, it could become legal precedent and impact all other climate action plans in the state. Eric Anderson, KPBS News.
Starting January 1st, drivers with DUIs will have to take an extra step to keep their driver's license. KPBS reporter Steve Walsh looks at how ignition interlock devices have become the law in California.
Beginning Tuesday, people convicted of driving under the influence will have to install an ignition interlock device in all of their vehicles. The device is connected to the ignition. Drivers blow into it to test whether they've been drinking.
You don't just do this once. It comes up periodically, so you have to, every 6, 20, or 30 minutes, you'll have to blow in this again while you're out driving.
California has more than 304,000 drivers with 3 or more DUI convictions. Announcing the new law, Assemblyman Todd Gloria says the devices are an alternative to locking people up.
They allow the offender to get help, be a productive member of society, but not to endanger my family or your family.
Going forward, all drivers convicted of drunk driving will have to pay to install the device on every vehicle they own.
The law allows for a sliding scale based on ability to pay, but the information that I was given is that it's basically less than $3 a day.
The devices must remain on the vehicle for 6 months for a first-time offense and up to 3 years for someone with 4 or more convictions. California becomes the 31st state to require ignition interlock devices. In other states, the devices have lowered drunk driving-related traffic fatalities by 15%. Steve Walsh, KPBS News.
Democratic state lawmakers say they plan to introduce a tax on handguns and semi-automatic weapons next year. They say the revenue would go toward a state violence prevention program. The bill comes after last month's deadly shooting at a bar in Thousand Oaks. The bill's author says the new tax would help prevent further tragedies. State gun rights advocates say the bill punishes responsible gun owners.
This is something that is in essence going to price many people who are low income out of the ability to be able to exercise their fundamental constitutionally enumerated right to keep and bear arms.
The tax amount has yet to be determined. Lawmakers expect to take up the bill in January. Highcaliber Horse Rescue, a nonprofit at the center of multiple local and state investigations for fraud and animal abuse, was evicted from its Valley Center ranch 2 weeks ago. iNewsSource investigative reporter Brad Racino spoke to the property's owners and found the animal rescue left the land riddled with death and dismemberment.
Travis Fox and his wife, Brenda Markstein, rented their Valley Center ranch in 2014 to the nonprofit Highcaliber Horse Rescue. They dreamed of having the 15 acres serve as a safe haven for horses and kids with disabilities, and thought Highcaliber would do just that. But as Brenda told me about a week before Christmas, that dream turned into a nightmare.
And as we were cleaning out things, the hard part was to see all the animal feces everywhere and just left. Our floors are beautiful floors buckling from, you can tell that it's been urine everywhere. And that's very hard if you've had a home to get rid of.
Volunteers by the dozens had turned up to help Fox and his family clean up. Their work uncovered grisly reminders of what went on at Highcaliber. They found cow skulls and bones, the carcass of an endangered bobcat in a garbage bag in a freezer, next to a headless chicken and a horse leg. They also uncovered a stillborn horse buried under a pile of manure. Highcaliber and its founder, Michelle Natilla, are the center of multiple government investigations, and Natilla hasn't talked to us since March. Travis Fox said he's frustrated by the pace of the government investigations.
The DA, I understand, has been notified about this. It's gone all the way to State Attorney General. And all I keep hearing is it's been investigated.
For KPBS, I'm iNewsSource investigative reporter Brad Racino.
And to see more of the video walkthrough of the property, you can go to iNewsSource.org. iNewsSource is an independently funded nonprofit media partner of KPBS. Retailer Sears says it will close 80 more stores across the nation by next March. 5 of the closing stores are here in California, but none are in San Diego County. Sears filed for Chapter 11 bankruptcy last October. CEO Eddie Lampert submitted a bid for the company's remaining stores today. Trouble for an airline operating out of North County's Palomar-McClellan Airport. Today, California Pacific Airlines tweeted that it was suspending its West Coast services because of a pilot shortage. An airline spokesman says new pilots are being trained and they hope to be flying out of Palomar again by the end of next month. Wells Fargo Bank agreed to pay $575 million in a nationwide settlement today. The bank came under scrutiny in 2015 after acknowledging its employees had opened millions of fake accounts in order to meet sales goals. The bank also agreed to create teams to review customer complaints. California Attorney General Javier Becerra called the bank's past behavior unlawful and disgraceful. Seed money for new businesses comes from a number of sources, but earlier this year, KPBS investigative reporter Claire Tregesser found that businesses in low-income areas are far less likely to get bank loans, which can create patterns of disparity that have far-reaching impacts.
Most flower shops, I feel like you go in and you have to say, I'm looking for something for my grandma. I want to spend $50, and you have no idea what size that's going to be, what their style is going to be, what vases you get.
Natalie Gill has been running the flower store Native Poppy in North Park for almost 3 years. She had a vision for a different kind of flower store.
For us, it's very clear. You can get small, medium, large. You know the prices, you know what it's going to look like.
Her business is flourishing, but things didn't always look so rosy. She put $20,000 of her own savings into opening the store, but needed about $40,000 more.
I went to a bank asking for a loan, and the process was complicated and long, and I needed the money right away. I'd already signed the lease, taking a bet that I would get the funding. I don't know what it was, but it was just, I got rejected for every loan I tried for.
So she did something risky. She took a loan from an online company.
And it was a $24,000 loan that would get deposited into my bank account the next day, but it was at 18% interest, and I had to pay it within 3 years, which was a risk I was willing to take because I had no other options.
Businesses in low-income or high minority census tracts have much lower rates of access to small business loans.
Gil's experience is a typical one, says Spencer Cowan, a research consultant. He prepared a report for the nonprofit Woodstock Institute on bank lending using data banks report to the federal government. He then updated that data and localized it to San Diego County for KPBS. Cowan found that only about 1 in 5 businesses in low-income areas have received a bank loan, compared to almost 4 in 5 businesses in high-income areas.
You know, you're essentially a cash basis business at that point.
Right.
You know, if you need to buy office supplies, you know, you have to either get a merchant cash advance or tap into your own personal funds.
And he found that businesses in low-income areas received under 5% of the total loans given from banks in San Diego, while businesses in high-income areas received just under half of the total loans. He says that drives businesses to predatory lenders that can leave them worse off and has even bigger consequences.
Businesses don't get started, so employment stays depressed. The job opportunities aren't there in the neighborhood. Businesses that are there don't expand because they can't afford to. So you have a cycle that kind of perpetuates that neighborhood being less friendly to business, less fertile as an incubator for business.
Project Rio Collective started out as 5 families who got together from cleaning up the neighborhood here.
Tommy Walker is one of the owners of Project Rio Collective, a coffee shop in Paradise Hills that opened 2 years ago.
As we cleaned up the community, a lot of people in the neighborhood were saying we wish we had somewhere to hang out, somewhere we could grab a cup of coffee, meet our neighbors, do some homework and study.
True to Cowan's findings, Project Rio started not with a bank loan, but with investments from 5 families. And when they went to a bank asking to borrow $4,000 for an espresso machine,
they said, no, you guys don't qualify because you haven't been around long enough.
They ended up borrowing money from one of the owner's parents, and now they're serving Mexican mochas and lavender lemonades. But Walker says they shouldn't have had to do it on their own.
Some neighborhoods might not get the recognition or even the financing that they deserve, or even just, you know, the help that they need.
He says he hopes other neighborhoods follow their example by working against the odds to make new businesses happen. Claire Tregesser, KPBS News.
To learn more about Native Poppy Project, REO, and other San Diego businesses, head to kpbs.org/loans.
2018 was quite the year, so we take a look back at the year in politics, environmental news, and the border with KPBS journalists who've covered those stories all year. Join us for a special edition of the KPBS Roundtable tonight at 8:30.
You may have seen this in Tierra Santa this week, a helicopter removing palm trees from the canyons there. A conservation group's been leading this project to get more than 300 trees out of Rueda Canyon. The palms are invasive, and experts say they are a fire hazard when their fronds dry out. The conservationists hope taking the palms out will help boost native plants in the canyons. Cold weather conditions are expected to continue here in San Diego, and Erin Calandra has our weekend forecast.
Good evening. Thanks for joining us. We are under a freeze warning for parts of the interior regions of the county. That's because we have clear skies. Tonight, temperatures are going to drop below freezing. So if you live in some of these locations where we are seeing that freeze warning, bring those plants indoors if you're hoping to salvage them through the winter. Taking a look at the satellite and radar, it's quiet. We don't have much precipitation and offshore flow, so plenty of sunshine throughout the day. Very few clouds around. For tonight, it'll be 41 degrees. That's pretty chilly here in the metro area. And taking a look across the region, widespread in the 30s. Again, below freezing in spots, Mount Laguna, for example, at 25. So you'll have some freezing. Chula Vista right around 39 degrees. Another issue we're dealing with right now is gusty winds, mainly to the north of us. That's where all the advisories are. But it's going to get pretty gusty, especially in the deserts and mountains, those interior parts of the county as well. And that's going to be through tonight. Here are some of those future wind gusts. And you can see Borrego Springs well into the 20s, Mount Laguna and El Cajon at 17. This is right around 12 o'clock, 1 o'clock in the morning. So overnight, you're going to hear the wind howling. Now, by morning time, they really pick up, reaching El Cajon at 30 miles per hour, Ramona at 32. That's enough to cause some problems for people who are traveling. So be aware of that as you hit those highways. Other than that, the weather is pretty nice. It's going to be sunny out here and temperatures will be very comfortable. San Diego reaching 63 tomorrow, Ramona at 60, and Mount Laguna right around 39 for that high temperature. The winds will be dying down throughout the weekend and throughout the beginning of the work week, so things will be getting back to normal. Expect to see lots of sunshine. Temperatures in the 60s along the coast. Inland, it'll be sunny, also in the 60s. In the mountains, we're in the 40s and 30s. Temperatures overnight dropping down to those mid-20s on Monday. And in the deserts, it'll be sunny and dry in the 60s. For KPBS News, I'm Erin Calandra. Back to you.
In a lot of ways, it's like regular golf, but in res golf, the greens are not all that green. Cronkite News reporter Jake Trybulski on how golf brings people together in the Navajo Nation.
In the vast Navajo Nation that covers most of northeast Arizona, the game isn't always fast. However, not many people are in a rush.
Res golf, it's dirt, frustration, a lot of cussing, but it's fun though.
Oh, it's sandy, man.
Donald Benally, his two brothers, and his cousin Freddie created their course in Steamboat, Arizona, which they proudly stake claim as being the first of its kind.
I never saw anything like this. I never saw anything like this. So, as far as I know, yes, we are the one that generated the res golf.
Whether they were the first to tee off into sagebrush-lined fairways or not, the sport is growing. Res golf courses are popping up all over the Navajo Nation.
They actually have a course in Fort Defiance as well. And then they have one in Shanto. There's one actually in Cottonwood and then Tuba City. So it's around.
A 24-mile road trip. That's what brings you from the Benally's course in Steamboat to Low Mountain, Arizona, a population close to 700 where Marvis Ben and his family built Lowerville Stingers Golf Club.
Well, we didn't really have nothing to do around here besides basketball was the main one, but then one day I saw Michael Jordan when he retired. He was playing golf, so that's how it started.
On this day, it's Lowerville's 7th annual tournament.
Hole number 5, Donald, Joe, Sean, Kai.
And while it might not be a PGA Tour crowd, people come from all over the Navajo Nation.
I like it because I bond with my brothers and my dad. You know, that's the only way we can connect. We can't just go out and go to a movie theater or go to the mall.
What they do have on the Navajo Nation is land, a lot of it. So why not make a par 5 almost 600 yards long? And just like traditional courses, res golf courses have their own unique features that make each one different. One specific place you'll notice it is when you're putting.
What would Tiger Woods do?
My sister, she lives right there, threw out an old carpet. So we just put a hole in it, put it right there, and that's how the ball roll perfectly.
We don't like to call them greens. We just like to call them putting surfaces because there's no green on the green.
Maintenance requires hard work like any other course. But instead of using specialized mowers and advanced technology, res golfers get a little bit of help from those they share the land with.
The landscape here is not just meant for us, it's meant for the cattle and the livestock. You know, there's food for them all around. I mean, we're literally stepping on it as we go from hole to hole.
We don't really want to just clear the whole thing. Sage is much more res everywhere. If you go on the Navajo Reservation, you see a lot of sage. And that's part of our bunkers. Like if they hit it in there, I mean, tough luck. I mean, that's res golf.
And while they are family courses, both are open to anyone who wants to play, free of charge, because this game is one to share.
This kind of reminds me of way back when St. Andrews, when they first started their golf. I mean, this is how they started, and this is how they took care of their golf course, and that's where the whole thing started. We're kind of proud of what we have. It puts a lump in my throat when I see all these people that we don't know. We got to know a lot of people through golf.
For Cronkite News, I'm Jake Trybulski on the Navajo Nation.
I'm William Brangham. Tonight on the NewsHour, rolling back some of the Obama-era environmental regulations on coal plants. Coming up at 7, right after Evening Edition on KPBS.
A controversial 19th century play is the inspiration for a daring 21st century dance show opening soon at San Diego's Diversionary Theater. KPBS arts reporter Beth Accomando went to a rehearsal just last night.
Choreographer Michael Mizraini likes to focus on characters who are in a quandary or who are fighting against something. Diversionary Theater provides the perfect venue and partner for his work.
It's very open. They let me come in and do what I want artistically. Never have I gotten, oh, you can't do that here. It's very freeing. They want to push boundaries and tell stories, so I really love that.
Pushing boundaries is precisely what Mizraini wants to do with his new project, Tryst, a dance cabaret made up of 6 works by different choreographers, but all inspired by the controversial play La Ronde. The play provocatively depicted sexual encounters that crossed class boundaries and pointed out the moral hypocrisies of the day. Mizraini took the section of La Ronde called The Count and the Whore and updated it.
It's updated to the priest and the whore. So I'm looking at things in religion, and also like even if you have a status in class and someone is lower than you, one incident can shift that power. As we're seeing in real life now with people who are being caught in scandals and their power is being threatened because of it.
I feel like this piece really examines the difference between conventional power, like, you know, the status, money, your rank in society, as opposed to the things that you don't want to have power over you, your desires, your needs, your addictions, you know, all of these things that will get the better of you if you don't keep them in check. And so we keep bringing it up in rehearsals, like this is what the original meaning was, and we want, but I think he managed to make it provocative for our time.
Marty Dorado is the priest, and Jake Bevel is the whore in what Mizraini is calling the game.
And my character basically has a relationship with a priest, and this relationship gives him a little bit of power over him because the priest has a certain desire that only this person, for whatever reason, can satisfy. And so even though the priest is a higher order, higher rank than this hooker, the hooker has a power over him because of what he does for his needs.
This particular gentleman that I invite, he has a way of getting under the skin just a little bit more and to really push my boundaries, and so constant push and pull of power.
I really wanted to look at boundaries, the boundaries of class and status, and the boundaries of how far each character will push each other to get what they want.
I almost set the board game as I like it and how I want it and how it's going to stay the whole time, but throughout, the other gentleman finds a way to change it on me.
It's a tug of war, you know, just like any relationship. And so that's what these pieces are. They're the ever-moving pieces of a relationship that are constantly being pushed around, being slapped into, you know. It's aggressive, it can be, you know, sweet and soft. I feel like any time I push, he immediately pulls back, and then I push a little bit more, pulls back. And every time that I'm trying to overpower him, he tries to regain control. And that's where that happens, is constantly, no, I'm in control. And then I slowly pull away at that and say, no, I'm actually the one in control because you desire me. You want more, but you don't realize that I can pull that out of you.
The physicality of the piece plays perfectly into Mizraini's athletic style of dance.
I respond to that viscerally. So when I see dance, that's what I respond to. If I see a dance work that's very active, it gets me in my gut. So that's what I want to do with my work. I want people, not to be punched in the gut all the time, though I think this new work is sort of a punch in the gut a little bit, but also as you watch it, you're leaning forward, not leaning back.
But when you set out to push boundaries, you have to expect a tug of war with some in the audience as well. That's why Mizraini wants to prepare people for the fact that there's nudity in the show, and it's recommended for adults only. So get ready to have your boundaries tested and maybe expanded with Tryst. Beth Accomando, KPBS News.
And Tryst opens on January 10th at Diversionary Theater. And you can find tonight's stories on our website. That's kpbs.org/evening edition. Thank you so much for joining us. Have a great evening.